Hi, I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Another Thing. A suicide bomber brought down a Russian airliner, killing everyone on board. The jihadist group ISIS claimed responsibility and at the same time reiterated their evil intent that America would be next. So how susceptible are our airlines to a similar attack? We have a former pilot, an aviation expert here to answer that very question. But first, Ellen Kaloje begins our coverage on the new threat in the sky. Ellen.
Thank you, Larry. The Transportation Security Administration predicts that this holiday travel season will be the busiest in history. And ever since the Paris attacks, every airport in this country has upped security. Now, that means longer wait times for most people, but there are things you can do to make things go faster and easier.
We ask for your help to protect you and your fellow travelers. Working together, we can keep our airports, our planes, and our country secure.
Getting through any airport during the best of times can be a challenge, but during the holidays with extra security, travelers have a lot of questions.
They want to know exactly what they can pack themselves, what they're allowed to bring with them. So I think passengers are very conscious of the security requirements and what they can do to contribute to security.
Mary Flannery is the manager of public affairs at the Philadelphia International Airport. She says during this busy time of year, passengers should arrive at the airport 2 hours before a domestic flight instead of the usual 1 hour.
And they are checking baggage, carry-on baggage, extremely thoroughly. They are expecting people to follow every procedure required, to take off your shoes, to take off your belt, to be prepared to go through the scanning machines efficiently, but you can't rush that.
You can't rush that, but you can make sure you speed things along by keeping all presents unwrapped, packing any liquids properly, and avoid wearing large jewelry or clothing with metal. On top of all this, the TSA plans to use enhanced screening on millions of passengers this holiday season. That means more random hand scrubbing for signs of explosive residue, more laptop checks, more shoe removals, and more bomb-sniffing dogs.
The canines are one layer of security that TSA uses to screen that freight to make sure it's safe and transportable.
Now, the TSA wants us all to remember the motto, if you see something, say something. And that means if you see anything suspicious, even if it's small, to report it immediately to the local police department. And all these extra security measures will be in place for a while. The State Department has issued a worldwide travel alert that will be in effect until February. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Ellen Kaloje.
All right, thank you, Ellen. To talk more about aviation safety, I want to introduce Hans Riegel, who is the Director of Aviation at Delaware State University, and you've seen him many times on television as an aviation expert. Hans, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
The fact now that we know, and I guess it's been suspected all along, that a bomb took down this Russian airliner, how concerned should we be?
We should be concerned as a nation, just it's a national security issue, but as travelers, you know, I like to give certain tips that we stick with the American carriers when possible.
Why is that?
I believe that the American carriers, the American airlines, not necessarily American, but U.S.-based carriers like United, Delta, American Airlines, they have extra layers of safety that are added for passengers.
There's so many things to talk about with the taking down of this Russian airliner. Let's start with the fact that they put an IED in a can of soda, and that's how they got it on the plane. That wouldn't happen at an American airport.
Well, these plastic explosives, PETN is one type, have been used, and there's been numerous aircraft since the 80s really that have, not numerous, but several that have gone down due to that. It's very hard to detect. It is detectable, and I think there's less chance of that getting through the American system. We've had a couple of attempts that have been thwarted on U.S. carriers. Remember, the shoe bomber was one, and there was another.
He got on the plane. I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't even be able to get through security with a can of soda.
True. And the fact that we can't carry liquids, yes. So there are different standards in different countries. If you're flying through well-established airports, let's say Charles de Gaulle to JFK, you're good. You're good.
So it's not just the airline, it's the airport. It's the destination or where you're flying from that you have to be concerned about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Justice Department have links too. and you can stay abreast. I would encourage any traveler to stay abreast of the latest security alerts for different nations.
And so when you're flying out of in Egypt, you would think that they'd be a little bit more advanced and concerned about security.
Yes, and there is something to be said, you get what you pay for. If you are going to fly in an area where a U.S. carrier doesn't fly, you'd be better off flying with an established carrier. For example, I know that Lufthansa will fly to Cairo. An established carrier who's been around forever, you're going to pay a little more for that ticket, but they add several layers of security. So you might want to fly with a British Airways or a Lufthansa if you're going somewhere there's no U.S. airline.
In the past, you mentioned the shoe bomber, and there was the underwear bomber, and there was a lot of people that got on planes and were unsuccessful. It seemed like every time something like that happened, we changed our security rules. We started taking our shoes off when we went through security because of the shoe bomber. Thank God we didn't have to take our underwear off. But are there going to be changes now because of this?
There will be, I think, and we have increased security obviously a lot since 9/11. So the theory is it's like Swiss cheese. There are layers of security, from selective screening, just things the airline does before folks even get on the plane, all the way to screening after security randomly to see what's going on. I was a pilot on 9/11, and I could tell you our cockpit entry procedures changed dramatically after 9/11, and there was a lot more security procedures put into place. Also, which, I mean, even as crew members, we had to go through security.
But is this one of those cases? Is this one of those cases, or do you just chalk this up? Well, there's a lack of security at the airport. There's talk that it was an inside job, that there were people, there were employers there. Do you chalk it up to that we've already taken care of that problem, or do we look at that and we make changes?
Well, there are things that the government does that we don't necessarily know as traveling public. So there are increased, heightened levels of security, and I am sure now that there's a heightened awareness of looking for that specific type of less detectable bomb going on. Because you have to remember, we have to screen cargo by different methods, and we also have to screen the passengers. So a lot of times, you know, these aircraft that have gone down, it's been something in the cargo bay. So, for example, one of the procedures that was put into place years ago was a passenger can't get on the plane, or if a passenger gets off the plane, the bag they checked in has to get off the plane with them as well. That's actually been a problem, and that was a development from a crash that happened when a passenger got off. Turns out it was a terrorist, plane blew up, and that was a problem. So I think there are things going on behind the scenes, and also heightened levels of security at the airport going on right now.
The underwear bomber and the shoe bomber, both of those incidents were caught by passengers on the plane.
True.
And so the vigilance of passengers, I would think, is ultimately important.
Well, that's an added bonus, really, by flying with U.S.-based carriers. After 9/11, there's such a keen awareness by passengers of what's going on. I mean, we had passengers that saved the lives of possibly the politicians in Washington with the United flight that went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I was an airline pilot during 9/11, and like I said, there was a lot of things that changed. One of them was the awareness of passengers, and we actually have some training that's taken place where we identify folks that maybe we can count on. You have to remember, the eyes and ears of the cockpit are the flight attendants, and they've received some training looking for certain things and also identifying people who can help them in an emergency. That's something that's been added to our security, these layers of cheese, as I talked about. It's just a block of Swiss cheese, holes are randomly, and it's hopefully the enemy doesn't get through there, it's blocked somewhere. So the flight attendants are keenly aware of the passengers on the plane and who to look for to help. We just had that terrorist attack thwarted by Americans on the train in France.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me that they not only profile suspected terrorists, but they profile suspected heroes. I had never heard that before. That's fascinating. Hans, thanks a lot.
It's nice to talk to you, Larry.
It was a fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
Hans Riegel, who is the Director of Aviation at Delaware State University. He's also a candidate for Congress in Delaware, and good luck with that as well.
Thank you very much.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the rights that grandparents have in domestic disputes when Another Thing continues.